Well, here's our sign for Nesbitt. We've been here once before, but we were invited back. Kelly invited us to come back to the Lewis Ranch today. So we are going back to hang out at Jerry Lee Lewis's house. Current house. Daze with Jordan the Lion begins now. All right, we have arrived at Jerry Lee Lewis Ranch. Now, I know that we've done this before, but there were things that we didn't get to see the last time, and when they invite you and they say, hey, we want you to come back, why not? So we're here at Jerry's Ranch, and they are doing a small tour that we were invited to take part in, so should be fun. Good to see Kelly again, and I'm gonna have her tell you guys an interesting story about Dennis Quaid coming out here, because if you know the movie Great Balls of Fire, Dennis Quaid played Jerry Lee Lewis, and he was just here last week. All right, there's the gate. That is so crazy. So crazy that you can actually come and tour the house that he lives in. Most times he just takes off and goes to a different house in town, but quite an experience, a living legend. Jerry is a Kentucky Colonel, so he's got 2 Kentucky Colonels out here. All right, there's our tour.
Jerry Lee had purchased it in '73. So the man who originally owned it owned airplane hangars, and he would bring home steel beams from work and put them in the wall. So when you walk in, your cell phone service will probably drop, and that's because of the steel beams. When he saw it, he ended up buying it from the bank. When he saw it, he fell in love with it, and he bought it on the spot for $200,000 cash. So that's a lot of money back then in '73. It's a lot of money now. So this is where he's always called home. It's over 30 acres, 2 ponds, natural ponds. And the bricks, if you see how they're kind of different colors, those are bricks from the Chicago fire.
Oh.
Yep. So Jerry Lee has 2 rules in his home before we enter. I'll go ahead and tell y'all. First rule, never use the Lord's name in vain. Second rule, if you see a gun, just don't mess with it. It's probably loaded. So, if you want to sign in and sign the guest book, we do have a waiver if you don't mind signing that too.
Wow. Take a look inside the killer's house.
In Faraday, Louisiana. Faraday is about right there, September 29th. And he was born into poverty. Faraday, if you blink twice, you'll miss it. These are his mother and daddy. This is Mamie Lewis and Elmo Lewis. That is his grandfather, so his daddy's daddy. So he learned half of his music in a place called Haney's Big House, which is right here. It was an all-black juke joint. And he would sneak in and hide under the piano. The owner would let him. And he would always say, your daddy's gonna kill me if he finds out you're in here. But that's kind of where Jerry Lee got half of his style, was from this historical place. It has since burned down and they rebuilt it, but this is the original here.
That pipe collection.
Wow. He wanted to cut a record. So he went down to New Orleans. It was J&M Recording Studio. And he cut a record. Him and his best friend Cecil Harrelson. And it really didn't do anything. More than anything, I think it was just he wanted to make a record. It was kind of poppy. The other side was an instrumental boogie tune. So a couple years later, he heard that a man named Sam Phillips had turned Elvis Presley into a star. And he said his words were, well, if he can turn Elvis into a star, he can certainly turn me into a star. So he beat the trail towards Memphis. Well, he got there, and he was to stay with his cousin and bass player, J.W. Brown. So once he got there, got settled in, they went to Sun to audition for Sam, and he wasn't there. He was on vacation in Florida. But this man right here, Jack Clement, he was there. He's known as Cowboy Jack. And he didn't want to record him. He said, no, we don't need any more piano players. And Jerry Lee said, well, I'm not leaving until you record me. So he recorded him. He recorded what was currently a country hit, Crazy Arms, and he recorded on the other side a song that he wrote, End of the Road. So when Sam got back from vacation, there was no question. He knew he had something. So they released Crazy Arms and End of the Road, and it really didn't do much. It was a local hit, but it really didn't blow up like they wanted it to. So on that record, on Crazy Arms, it sounds like such a full song, but there's really only two instruments. There is piano, obviously, and drums. This man right here, J.M. Van Eaton, he is the original drummer at Sun Studio for Jerry Lee, and for most others that ever recorded at Sun, he recorded with them. He still plays. So that was who was on the first Crazy Arms record, and then on the other one, End of the Road, the other side, this is Roland James. This was his guitar player. Roland was asked one time when he knew it was his time for a solo, and he said, well, I just wait for Jerry Lee to say Rollin' Boy. So if you listen to the songs, you'll hear him say, Rollin' Boy! That was his cue. So Roland was on End of the Road, and so was his cousin J.W. Brown on bass. So Jerry Lee, after Crazy Arms, it was great, but it really didn't do what they were hoping. So he worked as a studio piano player, playing for other people, kind of in the background. And as we all know, Jerry Lee Lewis is not a background guy. So he got a little bit tired of that. He was recording for Carl Perkins one night on a session. It was this historical, hold on, got some special effects here. There we go, at least once. So it was December 4th, 1956. He was recording with Carl Perkins. Johnny Cash stopped by, and Elvis stopped by. Jerry Lee says it was to see him. But, so Elvis stopped by. And what started out as just a recording session turned into a historical jam session. That's how we have the $1 Million Quartet. This record right here, for the $1 Million Quartet, there's only 4 of those made. Each family has one, and this is the only one you can see. The others are not displayed anywhere. Tired of being a background guy, he told Sam Phillips, photoed right here, he said, Mr. Phillips, we've got to do something, let's do that shakin' song. And Sam said, no, we're not going to do that. And he said, well, we got to try something. So finally Sam agreed, and they recorded Whole Lotta Shakin'. And per usual, Jerry Lee was right. It exploded, it was huge. And then, it's as if that wasn't big enough, then Great Balls of Fire came out, and that just blew through the roof. That was the biggest hit in Sun Records history. So no Sun record has ever sold more than Great Balls of Fire. So he really saved Sam Phillips and saved Sun Studio. So after that, it was smooth sailing for a while for him. Here they are right here. This is his stage drummer, Russ Smith. Russ used to wear sunglasses all the time on stage, restaurants, anywhere. And they would go into a restaurant, and Russ would make like he was blind. He would have a cane, and he would sit down, they would all eat, the whole time making like he could not see anything. And then at the end of dinner, Jerry Lee would hand him the keys and say, okay, Russ, your turn to and watch the waitresses chase him out.
That's great.
Yeah. So yeah, you can imagine it was probably some fun times on the road back then. Well, living room, or you could say, or the parlor. Watch your heads on the chandelier. There used to be one in almost every fixture, but Jerry Lee got so tired of hitting his head, he said these have got to go. So now there's only one. So we can all agree Jerry Lee's music is out of this world, right? Just completely out of this world. It's literally out of this world. His music was amongst the first to be played on the moon. So as you see, he's being presented the award. Y'all can come closer if you want to. So that's amazing. A pretty historical couch in the Jerry Lee Lewis world. As you see, it's the couch he's sitting on the album cover of Youngblood. So it's still here, still preserved, and a lovely couch. He's got some keys to the different cities over there, and that's really cool and all, but he's the only person I know who has a key to the city jail. So, I always think of Otis on Andy Griffith just reaching in and grabbing the key. He's also an honorary mayor of Faraday, Louisiana, where he's from, and he's a Kentucky colonel. If he knows the secrets to the herbs and spices, he ain't telling us. Now over here, this is, he was actually sitting in this chair this year in March. This is when he renewed his vows to his wife Judith, and they were sitting right here, and the preacher was standing right about where you're standing. And they had a very sweet vow renewal. And then over here, same day, we invited Sam Phillips' son, Jerry Phillips. And as you see, that was a huge surprise for Jerry Lee, and he was so happy to see his friend who he hadn't seen in probably years. You guessed it, the dining room. So the dining room is where holiday meals are held, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter. In fact, there was a big Easter bunny cake this year on it. So over here, this is where Jerry Lee learned the other half of his music. So the first half was an all-black juke joint. The second half was a Pentecostal Assembly of God church. So that's how he became Jerry Lee Lewis, is a combination of those. These are the famous cousins. It's Jerry Lee, Jimmy Lee Swaggart, and Mickey Gilley. Jerry Lee and Jimmy Lee Swaggart are double first cousins, and Jerry Lee and Mickey Gilley are first cousins, and Jimmy Lee Swaggart and Mickey Gilley are second cousins. So here they are right here, all three of them in the late 80s, and then here they are right here less than a year ago in this house. They came to celebrate Jerry Lee's 85th birthday with him. He's actually holding that picture. So, Jerry Lee still watches Jimmy Swaggart Network every Sunday.
Really?
Yeah, it's called SBN Now. They have a free app, y'all. If you're curious. So this drawing right here is probably one of the most realistic drawings I've ever seen in my life. It was donated by a fan. So, and Jerry Lee loved it so much he wanted it hanging here. So, very cool. That piano right there, the one that you're taking the picture of, that
cool.
is used to be right there in that corner. Well, long story short, Jerry Lee doesn't have it anymore, but the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame does.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, if it's not going to be here, that's the next best place it could be. And it's not Photoshop. That's actually a life-size, like, picture of him on the wall behind it, so it gives the illusion.
That's cool.
Yeah. So this mural over here, no story. It was here when the house was, or when he bought the house. He liked it, he kept it. The only thing that's kind of different about it, well, there's a lot of things different about it, but the main thing that's different about it is this is the only panel that isn't faded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's really weird because it gets the most light. So, kind of odd. So speaking of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the last time I was there, I saw a note, and it was framed, and it said, it was from a venue, I guess, and it said, "Please talk to Jerry Lee about piano abuse." So, he sure did tear him up, literally. Here's some more pictures over here with some of his friends, two of his closest friends, Ray Charles and Fats Domino up there. Jerry Lee said that Ray Charles drove. Ray was blind. Ray was really blind. So, but he said he drove, so,
Look at his suit jacket. Framed up here. Isn't that great?
So fancy.
It's almost like that.
There he is wearing it.
I know.
You can weird how.
It's super weird. Fan letters from the 50s.
No kidding.
Yeah, he keeps everything. He loves his fans so much, and it means so much to him.
Has he been playing still during the pandemic around the house and stuff?
Well, he actually had a a Facebook video not too long ago, and said he doesn't play too much anymore, but he'd like to sometime soon. So we'll see. So moving on through here. This is the only part where we don't permit photography or videos, so if y'all don't mind. This was when they celebrated 50 years of Sun Records. Shortly after that, a few years later, which, by the way, Jerry Lee played, a few years later they did 50 years of rock and roll. And I know it's sensitive because it's Elvis week, but I will tell the story. They were celebrating 50 years of rock and roll from when Elvis Presley walked into Sun Records. They had the nerve to call Jerry Lee and ask him to play. And he said, "What are we celebrating?" And they said 50 years of rock and roll from when Elvis Presley walked into Sun Studio. And he said, "Huh. Well, when it's been 50 years from when Jerry Lee Lewis walks into Sun, then you call me because I am rock and roll." Then he hung up. He didn't play, needless to say. He's a man who just really doesn't care. And that's one of his most admirable qualities, I think. Speaking of not caring, here he is in front of Sun. It's great, it's professional, he's looking very well, and he's wearing flip-flops. Oh my gosh. Because he just doesn't care. He's always done what he's wanted. He's been asked every single time. He says, "No, I do it all over again." So, I like that. I can respect that. So right here, this is the Delta Music Museum. We always like to point folks their direction. It is free, but they encourage a $2 donation. If you ever find yourself in Faraday, we highly recommend it. It touches more on the three cousins. And then right here, we have, it was an invitation to an event at Graceland after Elvis had passed away. But it leads me to the story from when Elvis and, or from when Jerry Lee Lewis. Let me just tell the story. So, okay, so Elvis, it was 1976. Elvis called Jerry Lee and said, "Hey, I need a friend." And Jerry Lee said, "Okay, I'll be over." And so Jerry Lee was on his way, and Hernando's Hideaway is on the way to Graceland from here. So he did stop, and he had a few cheeseburgers, drinks. Cheeseburger's the new drink. So, he had a few drinks, and then he left Hernando's, and he had just gotten a brand new 1976 Rolls Royce. And his judgment for distance was a little bit off, so he just drove that brand new Rolls Royce right into the gate. And this obviously alarmed the guard, so the guard came around and he said, "Who's there?" And Jerry Lee, being the guy he is, said, "The killer." And this really alarmed him, so they walked over to the door, they opened the door, and Jerry Lee's gun fell out. And they said, "What were you going to use that for?" And he said, "Kill Elvis with it." Joking. But they didn't think it was funny, and they called the police to have him arrested. So the police got there, and Jerry Lee refused to get out of his car until his song was done on the radio. So once his song was finished playing, then he did cooperate, and he went with him. He was arrested, and he was out by 8 in the morning. Elvis took care of everything and made sure they knew it was a misunderstanding. But when you see his mugshot, that's from that night. And if you hear how Jerry Lee tried to kill Elvis, that's really what happened. They were very good friends, and they did love each other very much.
You can see all those gold records on the wall. Killer's piano.
Yeah. Yeah, this is where his birthday party was held. Him and Jimmy Swagger and Mickey Gilley were right there. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. This is
as many people as they had in that room. Was a lot.
Yeah, that's where he was sitting for the birthday party,
Right.
right in that chair. You can see that video on YouTube. That's so cool.
This is the only piano in the house?
This is the only piano. There's oh, yeah. That's the one.
Oh, Jerry Lee's Roku. Awesome. I love the ashtray. That is great.
Jane was named after his second wife, the cat.
Oh, that's Jane.
But that's Jane, named after his second wife. Jerry Lee did not kill Jane. Jane was a gift. Jerry Lee has not ever killed a living animal in his life, but he does love that cat.
Jerry's bar.
These are where all the gold records are.
All of those are Sun records. Last time I was here, you told me about the record that he signed but didn't sign, and I got one right after that.
Oh, the stamp?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Breathless, it didn't sell well because it was a really hard song to dance to. So they made a deal with Dick Clark and Beechnut Chewing Gum, where if you send in 5 rappers and $2, you get an autographed copy of Breathless. And this was in the 50s. Well, it wasn't autographed, it was stamped, but he did stamp it. Him and Sam Phillips and a couple other people, they did sit there and they just over and over. So if you ever find one, it's more rare than a real autograph because there weren't that many made.
I love the wood paneling on the walls. Take a look at that.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I have to every now
Then
and then
his
try
bar
to keep
glasses.
it, going, and it's terrifying. I mean, Jerry Lee Lewis's Rolls Royce, good lord, you know?
Even the clock has his initials, JLL. George Klein. He's a good friend of Elvis's.
A little cemetery built for his
We're going to Cherry's Pet Cemetery.
puppy dogs and one cat. We just ask that you don't go beyond that gate over there. The gate's open, but just don't walk past it.
Last time I was here, she said Jerry had been out here shooting his gun recently, and we found shells that she let me keep. Here you can see the cemetery. They all have the middle name Lee. Superman Lee Lewis.
Puppy dogs are, and like I said, one cat. If you notice, they've all got the middle name Lee. His current dog is named Little Jerry Lee, and the girl dog is named Little Judith. So they are precious. Very sweet little dogs. So he does have a piano-shaped pool over there, but we can't bring folks to it yet because we don't have a fence around it. But it is there, and it is real.
This is the backdrop for the Youngblood album.
This
There
is
was
the Youngblood. You can see there's a probably better view when we go out the other door, but that's kind of under that tree is where they placed the couch. Oh, we better go in. My ducks are coming. They think I'm out to.
She said, let's go in because the ducks that are across the lake saw her, and she said this is when they think they're getting fed, so they're coming towards us now. Look, little doggy door. Now we're heading towards the kitchen.
You see the Coca-Cola wallpaper. Jerry Lee
Oh,
says,
God.
yeah, it says Coca-Cola. It is good drink if you don't mix it with alcohol.
Look at the red Coca-Cola sink.
Yeah, the red sink.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I never saw anything like that.
Look at that kitchen.
That's crazy.
And that's the original stove. This is the original blower.
Which one? Oh, yeah.
Here's Jerry Lee's Rolls Royce. It's funny. And this is the car that he got his COVID shot in.
See what it was, I would think it was his car down in Como.
How cool is that? Jerry Lee's Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
They had killer on the license plate.
Yeah. You know what? I think it was a black license plate with white letters.
Yeah.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I don't remember what
There is a beautiful Volkswagen that Miss Killer has, but it's not cranked right. Or it's not cranked
White
right now,
leather
so I couldn't get it
top
out
right
there.
here.
Otherwise, it would be there. There's a whole nother pond back there.
And they pointed out to me last time I was here, and then I looked on the record jacket and they were right. In the background of Youngblood, you can actually see that little boathouse behind him when he's sitting on that white sofa. Oh, and look, the ducks came up here like she said they would. Happy little ducks now. Jerry Lee's ducks. Somebody's been out here shooting. Guess who? Not a bad shot. Right here, this tree has a little plaque that says, planted in 1978 by Elmo Kid Lewis, Jerry Lee Lewis's dad. She said they recently found this just covered in mud and dirt and everything, floated across on the other side of the pond. This is Jerry Lee's paddle boat. And there go the 3 ducks with their full little stomachs to conquer the day. So Kelly, the last time I was here was the first time I was here. And it was crazy. Right as we were starting the tour, you got a phone call from Dennis Quaid.
Yeah.
Who played Jerry in Great Balls of Fire.
Right.
Now, he happened to be out here last week and you told me a story about how that all happened. What happened there?
Yeah, so there was a great rockabilly band that was going to play, Jerry King and the Rivertown Ramblers from Cincinnati. And I know that Dennis Quaid has great taste in music, so I sent him a text. I'm like, hey, come out, rockabilly band, good music, good people.
Was he close by?
He was in Nashville.
Okay.
And yeah, so he called me and he said, that sounds cool. And so I got him in touch with Dale Watson, the owner of Hernando's Hideaway. And apparently they worked it out to where Dennis would play a whole set. So he played a whole set on piano. He, of course, did Great Balls of Fire, Whole Lot of Shakin'. It was really good. It was really good. So everybody really enjoyed it. So, but yeah, that was kind of a cool thing. And, you know, I didn't expect the whole set. So that was way cool.
You accidentally made that all happen by inviting him.
Yeah, just by inviting my friend to come see a show, you know, that I figured he would probably like, to all of a sudden creating this like huge, awesome thing. So that was really cool.
And you told me that he flew himself literally in.
Yeah.
Like, didn't charter a plane, like flew himself as the pilot in, which I thought was so Dennis Quaid.
It's so Dennis Quaid. And yeah, he signed somebody's poster there. Dennis Quaid is here.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So,
Did he enjoy Hernando's?
Yeah, I believe he did. I know that he said he loved it, so yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I had a great time, so thank you for inviting me also.
Yeah, of course. I'm really glad you came out. Linda Gale last night was great, so yeah, for sure.
All right, my friends, we're gonna call it a day from here. This was awesome. She added a lot more stories than she told, more personal stories from Jerry Lee's history. I really enjoyed that. She was actually asking me what I thought, because the first time I came out here, she had just started doing the tours, and I said, I love all the extra information you added. So if you're in the area, make sure that you hit up the Lewis Ranch and come out for a tour. It is an iconic home, and the stuff that I couldn't show you when we got to that section where there was no, you want to be in there. Now, they actually take you into his bedroom. Before, you just got to look through a wrought iron door and you could see inside. Now you actually get to go in there. We saw numerous suits and costumes of his, and we actually saw on the back of his door were all kinds of knife marks where he'd thrown the knives at the door, and then we actually saw a knife sticking out of the wall. So you never know what you'll see here. Rock on. Have a great night, everyone. Goodness gracious, Great Balls of Fire. Good night.